Alrighty, I've got another game here. Sucks too. I had an absolutely amazing game with Nin earlier today. Nin versus Nin, actually, for the first time in months. And was completely dominated at the beginning of the game. At one point, he set off an Oblivion Stone, reducing me to just 2 land when he had 6 in play and a Jace, also with a Fade counter on it. And I managed to claw my way back into that game anyway and win it in like 17 turns or something. And unfortunately, as happens with a lot of long replays, the replay fell apart after about the 4th or 5th turn. And when I started drawing cards that I never saw that game and so on. So unfortunately I lost that game. This one, however, is quite awesome too. Not nearly as good, but I think worthy of recording. And I just got it out of the completed games because it's not archived. So it could fail. We'll find out. Anyway, here we go. Playing against... Oh yeah, okay. Whew. I was going to say, I don't recognize this hand, but yeah, this was a mulligan hand. Okay, so there's my hand right there. He's playing Memnarch, and I am playing Azami. I know, Azami is bad, but I won like 15 games in a row with Nin and got tired of playing it again. So, it seems like I get fun games when I play the worst decks. At least games that are worth recording. So I have to mulligan. He's keeping. I get a perfectly acceptable draw, obviously minus blue mana, which is a perpetual problem with my Azami deck. For whatever reason, maybe it's because I don't play with Preordain and Ponder. And I don't know, I don't think I play with the Expedition map either, but because I have to fill my deck with Dorky Wizards, I don't have as much deck manipulation, and therefore am more vulnerable to island light draws. Like this one. It happens all the time. So he starts with Divining Top. Definitely one of the 2-mana artifact or 1-mana artifacts I don't mind seeing early. My plan here is obviously just to drop Jace on turn 2. Hope he taps out to cast an artifact or something. Memnarch usually plays with lots of acceleration. But then again, any good deck does too. So he's got Mana Crypt too, so his draw is looking way better than mine. This is, to me, this is like purely telegraphing I have some sort of a counterspell. But honestly, if he does, he does. I'm not going to screw around and try to play some long waiting game against someone with Divining Top when I'm short on islands and I can't cast any counters. So I think it's best to just play aggressive here. I think my idea is that if I'm able to draw out a counter, he has 5 cards in hand. He counters Jace, and maybe I could just resolve Azami next turn. It's certainly worth a shot. And he has Frantic Surge. Look at that tech. He throws away 2 of his islands. And then has Arcane Denial, which I cannot complain about at all, given that I'm short on land. So off the Arcane, I get something very important, an island. Really, really helped me out big time there. So he casts a Time Walk. Kind of shitty card. It's so weird when people play with this card without like any rhyme or reason. I think there are a few decks in the format where it really shines. I think Damia is one of the decks that it's good in. It's obviously mandatory in Maelstrom Wanderer decks. And I think it's probably good in Edric, and it's good in Azami, actually. I had them in my original build of this deck, but I cut them because I kept drawing them all the time when I would rather cast something that actually impacts the game immediately. And they would often just sit in my hand. You draw 2 Time Walks early and you're sitting on 3 land, your hand is just screwed. It's just not proactive enough at all. And obviously not defensive at all. It's much more of like, a lot of people just play these things because they seem so obvious, but they're very much more, I win more in that category. Certainly in most decks they're win more. And I think that in in Azami they're win more. Edric probably too. Maelstrom Wanderer needs them because it's sort of integral to their whole strategy, but for the most part I think that they're very overrated. Isochron Scepter. So I'm not feeling too terrible about that. I do have Cryptic Command and Venser, so I'm not completely drawing dead to this. I'm just praying he doesn't put a good counterspell on top of it. And fortunately he's just got Mana Leak, which is going to be a problem. It's like another void for me. I do have Winnow Orb though, so as soon as I see this, even though he has Mana Crypt in play, I'm thinking long-term Winter Orb play. Like the entire game is going to be now setting up a Winnow Orb at the right time. I like that I can just run out Juicy Apprentice here. Another one of those bad cards I have to play because it's a wizard. He impulses in response instead of tapping me out. And I just equip it. Figuring that I could have played Winterhorde here, I suppose, but he would still have access likely to 5 mana next turn. And I don't really want to get stuck under my own. With this little mana in play, I don't want to get stuck under my own orb with a mana leak on a stick. So the game's going to take a pretty dark turn here. When he flashes back Time Walk. Whoop-de-doo. And then plays this guy. It's been my nemesis today. That super long Nin game that I won earlier today. The guy had Jace out for about 7 or 8 turns. And he fate sealed me all the way up to 13 counters when I finally activated the Cyclonic Rift in my hand and swung the game around in my favor. This opponent is more savvy than that, though, and understands that Jace's only purpose is to bounce creatures and draw 3 cards, for the most part. If you're fate sealing, generally you're doing it wrong. So I take the opportunity with him being tapped down to 1 mana here to run out Azami. In my opinion, there really weren't a lot of other options. I needed to draw a land there, I guess, I needed to draw a land this whole game. But I figure Azami's actually pretty good because it's going to at least keep his Jace busy. I don't expect that he has a lot of ways to deal with it, and I kind of want it to induce him to cast his Memnarch. Because if he casts his Memnarch, then I can start screwing around with the Sower. Of course, I still have only 3 land out. It's just so weird how this happens so much with this deck. It just does not draw islands. So he thinks for a long time here, and I'm thinking in my head, like, please cast Memnarch, please cast Memnarch. A lot of time goes off the clock, and he eventually just says done. Still have no land. Finally get one there. So I cast my Felwar Stone, figuring he's going to use his mana leak. And obviously I pay that, because it allows me to cast the Apprentice. And he's got Fairy Trickery. So it's sort of a weird game. Like, even though he's got a distinct mana advantage, I guess 2 or 3 land, and he's got a Jace in play, I don't feel really that big at a loss here. I really got to get Gilded Lotus on the board, though, because Gilded Lotus will make the Win Orb plan just that much sweeter. I'm still thinking he might cast Memnarch here. Like, he had enough mana to cast Memnarch and use his Mana Leak, which would have really been a pain in the ass. Instead, he briberies me, and for a long time I think he's going to take Glenelendra Archmage, which is, in my opinion, clearly the best thing to pick. But he takes Teferi instead, and regardless of what he's doing, it's a Venser target. So I was kind of actually hoping he'd take Glenelendra Archmage so I could just steal it. So I could just replay Venser, or steal it with Venser, essentially, and then recast it to control him a little bit better. So looking at my hand here, obviously I'm just going to Venser. What's going on? Oh no. I hate you. I hate you, replay machine. Damn. Oh well. I've recorded enough of this that I think it's worthy just narrating it. I didn't draw Mystical Tutor there. I think I just drew another land. But what I did was I Vensered the Teferi, and on his turn, he cast something. That's right. He cast something big, and I Cryptic Commanded with the intention. He had 2 mana available. Oh, that's right. He casts Main Step Opportunity. On his turn, he casts Opportunity, and I have been waiting to pull the trigger the whole game. Yeah, I definitely drew an island. This was an island. So I played an island and Vensered, and I had 4 mana available. And so he cast Opportunity after screwing around with his Divining Top. And I Vensered. I had Teferi back in my hand. He cast Opportunity, and I Cryptic Commanded it with the intention of him tapping out to Mana Leak it with the Scepter, which is exactly what he did. So he drew his 4 cards, going up to 5 cards in hand, and I untapped played another land, because I drew 2 at the end of the turn with Venser and Azami, and I untapped and I played land, Lotus, Sower of Temptation on the Snapcaster Mage to steal it, and which would allow me, of course, to also walk over with Venser to kill off Jace, and I cast Winter Orb. So I had Winter Orb, Mana Crypt, an untapped island, Felwar Stone, and Gilded Lotus in play, and all of his lands were tapped out with the exception of his Mana Crypt. Well, so he wisely packed it in. So it was a pretty cool game. Sorry you didn't get to see the end of it, but that's exactly how it unfolded. See you next time.